I want to introduce two folks. I'll introduce Kelcie first because she has her camera on and will be presenting today. So Kelcie Young is an environmental guru. She's been with Metro Transit for, I forget how many years now, but many, really helping us through environmental processes. So I know this committee talked a lot about how do we make that process accessible and understandable to folks, and you're in good hands with Ms. Kelcie Young. And so she's helping us also hire somebody that will help her kind of get those environmental documents ready. But she will be a face that all of you will start to see much more frequently as we kind of get into that work and all that kind of stuff. So anybody that wants to kind of meet Kelcie or anything like that, reach out to outreach coordinators and we can facilitate discussions. I know whenever I have any minute kind of question about an environmental process, Kelcie knows it. So she's an amazing resource, and we're very glad that she wants to spend some time with the Blue Line team. Also on the call is that Blue Line now officially has a project director. We did not have that for basically this past 2 years. It was a combination of just kind of staff taking lead roles, and she's driving, so sorry to put her on the spot, but
I am parked. I parked so that I could introduce myself.
So Chris, many of you might already know Chris because she was the deputy program director, which Metro Transit has the structures that oversee our LRT project. So that's what a program director is of the blue and green lines when we kind of started. And she's been serving as the project director of Gold Line for the past 4 years, I believe. Did I get that right? And now we're lucky enough to have her come back over to the Blue Line project to help us out. But we're just these big capital projects, making sure you're in line with what the federal government needs, all the kind of regulatory things that you need to do, the massive processes that are behind them, takes a lot of expertise. And so we did a national search to find a project director. It interviewed people nationally as well, and ended up finding a really awesome candidate right in our backyard. So just know that another just all the really awesome people want to come work on Blue Line. So again, just like Kelcie, we'd love to get Chris out and about to meet some of you all and set up some meet and greets with folks. So to get to know her a little better as well. So those are some of our new staff. Also, Chris, did you want to say anything at all, or Kelcie? I don't know. I'll just kind of.
I'm just really excited to be at this meeting of the BAC. I'm familiar with this process from other projects and love to hear from this community. So I'm really excited to get started. Excited to meet everybody.
So a little bit of other background for the committee. If you know folks that are interested in working on this Blue Line project, there will start to be postings fairly regularly for positions within the Blue Line, because now we kind of have the go-ahead to start really kind of staffing up and getting that structure. We've been a lean, mean team of just a couple handfuls of folks, and that will kind of become this big project office that's needed to do all the details and answer all the questions and push forward all the things that folks have been asking about. So if anybody asks you about interest in working on the project, get us connected, because we will have many a job, including my previous position as manager of public involvement is currently posted for Blue and Green Line. There are 2 positions. But if you know anybody in community that is very passionate about making sure that we have robust engagement and really enjoys being in community and working on these super large infrastructure projects, I know a lot of you are very well connected to a whole bunch of folks. So please put in the plug to anybody that you think that would be interested in applying. You'll still see me around, just I'm in my new role as Director of Community Affairs here at Metro Transit. So sorry, Mike did a chat. Sure, Mike, we'll put the link of the roster. The people who they represent are all on our web with the BAC. When we get to the end of the committee, one of the things that we'll be talking about is that this group's charter is also basically done. The appointments of the BAC were through the selection of the route, and now we'll be asking all of our municipalities, as well as Hennepin County Met Council, to reappoint their members. Since it kind of got brought up now, I'll just kind of give the caveat of, for those that were appointed by the Met Council or Hennepin County, we want you to continue with us. We'll basically be recommending to policymakers that anybody that we appointed continue on if they're interested, but we'll just be asking people to apply and indicate their interest. Each municipality will kind of go through their own process to appoint folks. Everybody kind of has different ways of doing it, whether that's a formal application or reaching out, or most councils endorse their members. So there'll be a formal process with that. So just want to caveat that the membership, this is the last meeting of this current membership, and then we'll be reappointing both the BAC and CAC for the next phase of the project, which is to kind of get us through our environmental process. So we'll have a thank you and kind of debrief at the very end as time allows, but just since it was asked, kind of want to put that out now. So last plug too is that the faces that are on today, you've been very, very involved, and so I really hope that everybody would be interested in continuing with us. We've really appreciated your leadership and feedback and all that kind of stuff. So I've talked for way too long. Felicia, would you mind taking it away to make sure everybody's cool with the meeting summary?
Sure. So everyone should have received the meeting summary with their invitation and maybe even a separate email. So I'd like to have a motion to approve the June meeting summary.
So moved, KB.
Second. Thank you. It's been moved in second. All in favor? Any opposed? And it is approved. All right. I know we have on our agenda that up next we're going to have an update from the anti-displacement work group. See, Terrence is listed as giving. I don't see him on.
Yes, Ed Getz.
Unless he's under a different name.
Yeah, Ed is here instead.
Awesome.
See, Terrence is still on an airplane, so Ed will take it away if Nick can go to, I think it's slide 3 or 4.
Great.
Cool, thanks. Take it away, Ed.
All right, thank you so much. And yeah, see, Terrence, the airline changed his flight time less than 24 hours ago, and so I am pitching in for him. I will try to sound authoritative, but I'm really just reading his notes. So I think the objective here is to give you a summary of the event that we had on June 4th, the Anti-Displacement Working Group that met for a full day on the north side at Juxtaposition Arts. And a lot of different things were covered at that meeting. The first sort of element that the group discussed and considered was the analysis that the Cura team did on impacts along the blue and the green lines. What we already know about what the impacts were of the Central Corridor and the Hiawatha line. And so this was our own analysis of census data, of parcel level data, but it was also reference to other studies that have been done of those two different lines as well. And so there is a fair amount of information out there about what happened to property values, about what happened around the station areas. And so we essentially reviewed that data for the group. The group also went through an exercise of defining displacement, giving their ideas about what they felt were the essential elements of displacement. There was a fair amount of time spent on reviewing anti-displacement policies that were and that are being pursued by other jurisdictions. So there was a pretty extensive inventorying of what other locations have done about along the lines of anti-displacement. And then the group went through a process of deciding what kinds of actions and concerns they were going to focus on going forward. So next slide, please. Great, thanks. So as I said, the previous research that was done on the blue and the green line showed slightly different timings in the effects of neighborhood change. On the Hiawatha line, nothing really changed until the line actually opened. And then we saw significant changes in property values right around the station areas. And of course, the research showed that in fact, the property value changes only occurred along the western edge of the line, because on the eastern edge there was the 4-lane highway, and then the granary warehousing that exists on the other side of the line as well. And so the lesson there, of course, is that land use matters a great deal in terms of what the impacts of the lines are. On the green line, there were market effects that began much earlier. In fact, when the full funding was established in 2011, 3 years before the line opened, you began to see changes in property values, and so that was, I think, based a little bit on the success of the blue line itself. And so we're anticipating that those kinds of market effects will change early on during the blue line extension. That it'll be much more like the green line than the blue line. We covered for the members of the displacement working group the practices that were pursued along this central corridor and what worked. So we did extensive interviews with almost 10 people who were involved in working on the central corridor, and so we really zeroed in on what they did that was useful and that worked, and what was not working in terms of the efforts that they made to address residential displacement, but also business displacement along the line. And so we focused on that. We had Jonathan Sage Martinson and Mike Tamale, two folks who were very active in terms of producing these kinds of services for businesses and doing the housing development along the central corridor. They were in attendance at the meeting and talked about their experience as well. Next slide. So as I said, also there was a presentation of national policies and programs. I don't know that there's much more to say about that. That document is on the website that we'll get to in a second. And then the working group began to talk about recommendations for mitigating displacement for government bodies to work on, basically looking at what kinds of policy areas and models of approaches that might be most effective. Next slide. So this is the summary of the the exercise that the group went through in terms of co-defining displacement. People talked about changes in the neighborhood that forced people out or that made them feel like they no longer belong. This is widely referred to as cultural displacement, the idea that some people are actually able to survive in a neighborhood, even though prices are increasing, maybe because they live in subsidized housing, maybe because they own their housing outright and have very few housing-related expenses. But when the neighborhood changes around them and perhaps gentrifies around them, they can feel like they are culturally displaced. So there you see the other bullet points. These were the items that the members of the anti-displacement working group sort of associated with displacement, and these are in fact what researchers have shown about displacement around the country. Next slide. And so this is the site where you can find all of this information. Who is a member of the anti-displacement working group? All of the meeting materials that I made reference to are at this site, so you can take a look not only at the previous research but also at the inventory of policies that we created for the group, et cetera, and the additional meeting schedule for the group. We're anticipating 2 public open houses in August, and the next full Saturday meeting of the group, which is going to focus on housing and cultural displacement, will be on September 24th. And so I think Terrence has also mentioned that they're increasing the engagement on the project to businesses along the corridor. So we're about to do a kind of drive-through business inventory at the sites of the station areas, and so this will inform the group as it goes forward as well. So I think that's the end of the slides that I'm to talk about. Maybe there's one more. Let's see what's on that. Yes, what's next? Public open houses. Okay, I've already mentioned that. Internal government meetings, and it's I'm not exactly sure what that refers to, but it sounds like there's going to be some outreach to some of the municipalities.
Actually, Ed, that's the internal working group. I'll just speak to that a little bit. I know Hennepin County has gotten started. We have a great group of people around the table with many different hats that they're wearing. And so what that means is that government is looking at all of the recommendations that were pulled from this first initial committee work group meeting and working through those to understand what they are, what policies, investments, programs that we have in place right now, and what can we do to further advance efforts to mitigate the areas that came out of those small group efforts.
Great. Thank you, Kathy, very much for rescuing me there. That's great.
You bet.
Appreciate it. And as I mentioned, we have scheduled further meetings of the group, the next one in September and one after that in November. So that's it.
Thanks, Ed. And there, I believe, not to put KB on the spot, but he was at both meetings. He's both one of our BAC members and a committee member. So I want to give him the floor to just make any observations that he had of the events. I think KB, your insight's always really valued. So if you're willing.
I'm sorry. I got a phone call in the middle of what you were saying, so I didn't hear what you were saying.
I was just saying, I wanted to, before we open it up for questions and discussion, I just wanted, since you're also a working group member, I just wanted to give you the floor just to share any of your thoughts or tellings of the Saturday meeting or anything that you'd like to add. I think this group really benefited from your perspective. So just wanted to give you the floor.
I I think it was a very informative meeting. The the ending wasn't what I would have liked for it to be, but I think that the continued engagement and actual engagement is more than necessary. Um, and I think there are some things that need to be addressed. Um, for instance, buildings and businesses that may be affected by the blue line, at this point, they have no idea what their futures are. Those of them that actually know that they're in line. So, I mean, there are some things that we need to address, but I think that Saturday was a very, very, very productive Saturday.
Thank you for that, KB. And I think we're looking forward to a lot more of those discussions, and really want to bring back to this committee kind of that discussion that comes out. And we'll talk to all of you too. If there's interest in diving a little bit deeper on some of these topics as well, just so that the committee stays informed about all the efforts and has an opportunity to uh, did anybody else get a message that the meeting was going to end? Okay, we're not going to worry about it. Panu got a warning, but I'm going to assume we're just going to plug away, and that is just going to be just fine. We'll figure it out if it does. So as things continue to get developed and the working group kind of gets kind of solidified among things, we'll definitely continue to bring it back. Is there any questions for Ed? And I'd say KB is a resource as well in this of the discussions that have been had.
I just have a question about, I'm looking at the minutes and I'm wondering, is there any listing of who of the general public attended this meeting? It's not in the anti-display. By the way, thank you for sending out around the roster too, but I think it's important to note like where people, who's attending and where they come from. Like, was there anybody from Robbinsdale there of the general public? Anybody from Crystal? Anybody from Brooklyn Park?
So I can answer that, Sophia. So this was a workshop of the memberships that were selected by Kira. There's representation of membership along the corridor from each one of the cities. So yes, there was somebody in attendance from Robbinsdale. We kept it to the committee members, staff that was going to present or facilitate, to give an opportunity for relationships to be built on the membership. Of course, we did have it where you could join and link in virtually. That was open to the general public. And we're looking to do that kind of framework moving forward, and then have these public events that Ed described, more for the public to join in and understand what happened at these workshops, the work that's progressing, and then for them to provide their input and feedback, concerns, whatever that is, to us at that time. So we're going to continue the workshops with the committee members that were formed. And I don't know, Mike, if you know what the process was around that, but there were 70 applicants, 60 of them were actually interviewed. And it was, there's a 26 membership that includes government representatives that were selected by the prospective governments to help engage in the conversation. But the community members are from nonprofits, businesses, or they represent just themselves.
Jason, can you hear me? Yeah, I don't know. I can't hear you though. Oh, yep, I can hear you. Yeah, I don't know what is happening. I got no, I only have for this morning, I only have the BAC. Yes. Yep.
Or okay, Nick is here.
I hate WebEx.
We want to get back in person. I think it's going to be super important as we kind of reconvene, because virtual meetings, boo run. So I see Jimmy joined us too. You might have joined us for the massive WebEx crash. So oops. Panu, can you confirm that you're sending an email to the committee, basically resending the calendar appointment and encouraging folks to join? Thumbs up, you are?
Yep,
Okay,
confirming.
cool. Okay, we'll give folks a minute. So for those that didn't see the message, because it might have been only internal to our organization, it basically told us that the license was out of time, and kicked us all out, which it shouldn't do. But we were having issues with Teams kicked us off all of our conference rooms in our whole agency. So just some technical challenges. this week. See, when you're in person, the power can go out and you can continue discussion. Virtually, weird things happen, and you just kind of have to flow with it. So thank you, everybody, for your patience. See, I see Felicia's back. I see KB is back. I see Candace is back. See Ryan is back. I don't see Mike. He might be the only one we're missing. Thumbs up if everybody can hear. Okay. Okay. Well, we lost Ed, it looks like still. Maybe, or I just don't see him. Well, Kathy's here. So in the absence of Ed, and just as maybe people are rejoining, KB was sharing his perspective, and I think we're just kind of, Mike had asked that question. Kind of summary of that, just in case people got kicked off, was we did have representation for basically all of the cities, both the government representative as well as there was at least some form of community or agency, or not agency, various categories of folks representing each city, usually more, in a couple folks doing that. So Tim, thank you for adding that to chat as well, which probably disappeared if people didn't get a chance to read it. So we'll kind of take it slow, let people re-find their join button, but Felicia, just want to open it up for discussion while we're also just kind of waiting for folks to come back.
Yeah, definitely. I've been, so thank you so much, Ed, for that update. It was super helpful. I've previously was able to have conversation with Kathy, and she told me about the website. And so I really appreciate that updates are being put on that website for, even the greater public to access. I I wonder if there is a way to make that more, I don't think the word's visible, but like that more of the general public, I guess, knows about it, and know that that's a way that they can tap into that work and see what's happening in their neighborhood and see who's, if it's even being worked on. Because I think a lot of what I see, so like anytime I see an article about this, it'll say that there's this anti-displacement work group, but it's not, at this point, it's, it hasn't said like, here's a website to go to get your updates or something like that. So just thinking about that, I don't know if we need to put some stuff in bus shelters or with some QR codes, but I just wonder if, I know that person-to-person engagement is important, but sometimes the way folks come across information can be in those places, right? So uh, as far as open questions that I might have, I really appreciate KB being here to give insight as a member of the anti-displacement work group, because I know that there are quite a bit of folks from the various communities, different business owners, some, and like Kathy said, folks who are part of like organizations, and then even people who don't have like organizational affiliations as part of that group, but have other offerings that they could give to that space. I'm wondering if there can be some ongoing sort of updates like this, and even representation in these committee meetings. So, and I don't know if that looks like, every BAC meeting in the next like round, or what are we calling it? There was a term that Sophia used, but in the next like round of this committee, if that's part of like the monthly agenda, is having that anti-displacement work group update from Terrence, if he's not on the plane, or Ed, or even if there's somebody within that committee. I think that the BAC would just appreciate feeling more connected to that. There was a lot of conversation in this group about it. So I just would imagine that folks are wanting to kind of keep their ear to it. Other than that, I did want to open it up for questions or thoughts that other members of the BAC may have. But yeah, thanks so much.
I want to second that, Felicia. I believe that there needs to be more of a cohesiveness with both the BAC and the anti-displacement group.
And maybe what I'm kind of hearing too is, you know, how do I put this? Losing in translation some of the really great discussion. Obviously, we brought the highlights, but hearing from the committee, like really more of an in-depth discussion about what's being discussed and what is being learned and what is being shown. Kind of that getting into that more detail. I think just to reflect what I think I'm hearing is you all want to have enough information that you can also reflect back the thoughts, right? Kind of confirm in a sense that the anti-displacement group is also aware of what is kind of coming out of this group and that we're all kind of moving forward together. So Kathy is also here to listen, and even though Ed seems to not have been able to log back on, we'll definitely translate that to them. But you know, I think the working group is meeting frequently enough that there's content that we can basically make anti-displacement a standing agenda item and think about how to, you know, it's hard to take a 8-hour or 6 or 7-hour session and distill it. But if we're doing that over multiple, if we have a couple months in between each session, maybe breaking that down and into a little bit of chunks. I think this was just an idea that popped in my head too, but the part of the working group, there's a couple panel discussions, and those provided a lot of information from, you know, community members that had experienced on the Green Line, et cetera. And that's obviously was live streamed. So I'm going to put it on my team to maybe pull out that specific section of the video and send a note to the committee, because that's a good way to kind of to hear, and that might lead to some future thoughts and discussions as well. Kathy, any thoughts on that end?
No, I think I'm going to take this feedback and we'll get something established within the meetings so that we are hearing from committee members and maybe even some of the government representatives about what they're talking about, right, in their groups, and then that back and forth that will start happening here with smaller meetings with the work group, the community work group, and the government representation. About furthering on the recommendation points and, you know, how we're working through those and see how we're doing, just so that we have that constant communication and we're hearing the right things from community.
I see Felicia sat the other way too, right? Like kind of letting folks know that they can pop into these as well.
Yeah, I'm thinking specifically about, you know, when we had, it wasn't a BAC meeting, but we kind of prepped for it, made our recommendation to the CMC when it was time for the CMC to make a vote on the draft report, right? I'll mention it again. That to me was a missed opportunity for the anti-displacement work group to really participate in this process. And I don't know how much they knew that even that was like coming down the pipeline. So that same kind of preparation that we get around like this, where things are happening, like these things need to happen along in this timeline. I don't know how that information is or is not being disseminated to the anti-displacement work group, because I feel like if when they first met, they knew that on this date and this month, a couple months later, there's going to be a vote on the draft report. And then it was worked within their work to review that draft report when it came out and say something, you know, make a statement like we did or something like that. So I don't know if that opportunity was given to them for whatever reason, but I think going forward, those type of opportunities, I feel like are a space where the committees and this work group can get out of our silos a little bit, so that the project, I think it was KB, like the project has a bit more cohesiveness around like who's meeting and talking about the things. And then for me, because it helps me also identify things, the BAC, different things that might come out of this work group, different nuances. So, but yeah, that's all I wanted to add to that. Thanks, Sophia.
Well, we can also bring that feedback back to Kira's, like how in their meetings with the anti-displacement working group are they updating those that there's overlap, right? But not everybody does, so that making sure that everybody in the anti-displacement working group is also tracking basically major project milestones and events. Kind of cross communication. Okay. Any other? Oh,
sorry. I did have a question for. Is Ed back on?
No, he's not. I unless I don't see him, but I don't see him in the participant list.
Well,
either under Eder or Getz.
I wanted to actually mention that he kept mentioning the Central Corridor. I'm sorry, but I have no idea what train he's talking about.
Oh, the blue line or the green, sorry, the green line, the one between downtown Minneapolis and downtown St. Paul. So that is the existing green line. We're extending the green line. And then the blue line, or the Hiawatha line, as its planning name was called, is the line between Mall of America Airport and downtown Minneapolis. And so we're an extension of the blue line. So kind of some old planning names for the lines, but those are yeah. So to track what he was talking about, so the blue line was the first line that we built in our region, going from downtown Minneapolis south to the airport, Mall of America. There was kind of some phases that happened with the construction of that project as well. It wasn't all completed at the same time. And his research indicated that the changes and development happen after the line opened, where the green line, the Central Corridor, was during construction.
No, I got all that. I was just the terminology. So when you say Central Corridor to us lay people, we think Central Avenue, and it causes confusion than it does understanding. So I think we should take a look at some of our simple language, and make sure that it's not just engineer language or language from the industry, so that people in the community can actually understand what they're hearing and what they're looking at.
That is a good note for us, KB, because some of us that were on Central Corridor Green Line, right? It's like, but it's no longer a term that's used in the general public. So really good thing to remember.
Yeah, I was sitting here like, what train is on Central?
Yeah. Sorry that Ed couldn't rejoin. We will definitely bring anti-displacement back, at when this group reconvenes in its newly constituted form, to talk more. I don't want to end discussion, but do we want to move on, or do we? Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Unless there's any other questions, yeah, I'm good, because we're going to get into the environmental and design next steps, correct?
Yes. You all know Nick, but Kelcie is going to start us out.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Happy to be here to provide an overview of our next steps on our environmental review. Nick, if you could go to the next slide. So just to refresh and orient everyone in terms of where we are in terms of our environmental review. And I will touch on a little bit of the purpose of environmental review and where we are too. So environmental review is a process where we look at and document the impacts and benefits of a project to assist in decision making. So the previous phase of environmental review was completed and had the project ready to go. That record of decision is that decision point that allows a project to move forward into final design and construction. Could you back up one? That previous phase was completed and essentially ready to go. Where we are now with the route modification is that we're looking at what needs to happen next to continue our environmental review process or kind of relook at it. So where we are now is in a step called a reevaluation. That's a federal step. We're working closely with the Federal Transit Administration to determine what needs to happen next when we have a completed environmental document, knowing that we have many aspects of the Blue Line extension project that are changing. So that is a decision step to determine if supplemental environmental review is needed. And then there's also a parallel step at the state level, which I think just orienting you to that, we'll need to touch on that as we go along. Okay, this slide, thank you. So we completed a reevaluation memorandum that was submitted to FTA for review in June. What that document is recommending is that the project complete a supplemental environmental impact statement. That is a document that would occur when proposed changes have a likely result of new significant environmental impacts that haven't previously been looked at and finalized and developed mitigation and all of those things that come along with environmental review. So we're recommending that because the modified route has impacts to locations that have not been looked at previously, or have not been assessed in the whole process of environmental review. Maybe there were some areas that were looked at in early on in previous phases, but needing to look at how the new project definition has impacts to the natural and social environment. So as soon as we get the go-ahead from the Federal Transit Administration, we'll kick off our environmental review documentation in earnest here this summer. Now we can go to the next slide. So just orient to the overall project schedule and where we are in the world. We'll be in this next phase of environmental review for the next 1.5 to 2 years. I'll tell you a little bit about the specific next steps for the environmental review, but other steps in this phase include municipal consent. That's a step where the project seeks support from cities along the route. And then also developing our design through engineering, identifying the location of stations, other associated infrastructure, so pedestrian and bicycle facilities, roadways, station locations, and then station area planning. Our next phase here is to prepare the supplemental draft environmental impact statement. We are hoping to complete that in next winter. And then following on from that would be that municipal consent step, and then leading into supplemental final environmental impact statement. And I'll tell you more about what each of these steps mean. And then concluding with an amended record of decision in winter 2023 that would allow the project to move ahead into final design and construction. So our next steps here are after we get the go-ahead, as I said, anticipating that we'll begin preparing that draft environmental impact statement. The purpose of that is to compare multiple options where we have them, and look at the impacts to both the natural environment and the and social impacts. So things like property impacts. The efforts of the anti-displacement working group will definitely feed into the environmental review document. So we'll have a summary of where that process is as of the time that this document is getting prepared. We also look at the benefits of the project and document that. And then we will definitely be sharing information about that process as we develop the environmental review document. We'll have you all along as we're preparing that. And then that concludes with a public hearing. After the document is published, then we'll have a public hearing. There will be additional public engagement happening at that step, but there is a formal process step for a hearing. So people have the opportunity to, go on the record with their comments if that is what they, if what folks would prefer to do. And that's typically in a hearing format. And then there's also a comment period that goes along with that if people would like to provide input and comments in another way. Next slide. So after that draft phase concludes and we've received formal comments, then we begin to prepare the final supplemental environmental impact statement. So the purpose of that document is to finalize and document, for the record, what the impacts are of that defined project at that step. And then that is also where we finalize and document mitigation commitments. So that will also be, a point of wanting to get input from you all on that as that's being developed. And then there will be at concluding the process will be an amended project record of decision, and that's where we, along with our project partners, the Federal Transit Administration, formalize for the record what our environmental commitments are, and that leads us. Those live along with the project going forward into construction. So that is a high-level overview of our environmental review process, and we'll share additional information on that as we go along in developing that documentation. Do folks have questions related to environmental review before we turn over into other kind of design related items? All right. I think Nick is going to walk us through some issue resolution items.
Thanks, Kelcie. And I just want to apologize. I have a mouse misacting here, so it was starting to go at work on its own, moving slides around. So good morning, everybody. Nick Landwer with Engineering Design with the Project Office. I'm sure most of you know me already from the last few years, but what we want to do is just kind of update on the process of where we're at, the technical process of the work. So as we've changed our phase here from more of a plan or of defining what our route is and coming up with that recommendation. We used to have what was called issues identification teams with each one of our project partners, the cities along the alignment. So as we were looking at our potential routes, we could identify what we thought were issues within those and identify those to help them way between each other. As we switch our phase more into an environmental phase, an engineering phase, basically we take the same teams, but want to define what our process is a little bit better. So what we have is an issues resolution process. So these teams are now becoming issues resolution teams. We're still identifying issues as we look along the alignment and dig deeper into our technical work. But at this point now with our environmental, we want to identify what those issues are and then help with what the mitigation measures are for those. So each one of these issues resolution teams, as we're calling them now, are composed of city staff and Blue Line project team members along the alignment. We meet on a regular basis, and some areas where we have a lot more work to do, we meet at least almost weekly on projects. Some areas, for instance, like Brooklyn Park here, where we haven't had a lot of technical work to do. We've met more on a monthly basis. As we start rolling up our sleeves, each one of those teams will have to meet likely more frequently, depending on the issues that we need to cover. So we can kind of adjust the work and how much attention we pay for it. So during this time, we develop a full list of engineering and design issues with each city. And, it's a continuing process that we'll work through. And those are updated regularly. And then as we go through with our committees here, we want to bring up some of the key issues that we're running up against or identifying, and we present them to these committees here, so you can see the work that we're working on and the issues that we have, and get your feedback and input on those. So during our regular issues resolution team meetings, we work to really resolve what those issues are, how to address them, and then incorporate them into our design. And again, make sure that they're in our environmental process, so we can look at how they impact the project, how they define the project, and how we mitigate for it. I'm just going to go through quickly here. So every city we're working with on things. For instance, Brooklyn Park, where we weren't affected by as much by the route modification. We were in good shape under design, 90% design in this area. But there's still work that we need to do. So we need to refresh the designs. They've been kind of sitting on the shelf for a while, and things change. Environmental requirements change. So we need to go out there and look. For instance, water quality and stormwater management. A lot of those regulations and rules have been revised. So we need to take a look at our plans, how we were handling that, make sure that they meet the new requirements, and update our plans accordingly. We need to also, along the alignment, and this is in Brooklyn Park, but it'll be like in Crystal, also update our designs and just pay attention to new developments that are happening along the corridor, that we're working with those developments that come along, and making sure those are updated and identified in our plans, so they're addressed and they're coordinated. Another thing is, as we get down to the southern part of Brooklyn Park, we need to look at that station now has shifted about 100 feet from where it was before. It was in between County Road 81 and the freight rail corridor, and now we're moving it into the center of County Road 81. Well, we need to take a look at the access to that station, how that station's placed, how we get folks safely to and from that station, how it connects to the park and ride structure there. So these are things that we're looking at in Brooklyn Park. Crystal, again, Crystal, we're moved over from the freight rail corridor, but we're looking at identifying our traffic capacity along this corridor in 81 and intersection operations. Those are going to be key of how traffic operates on County Road 81 and how the light rail fits in there. So we're looking, specifically Bass Lake Road. We knew that this was an issue that we needed to resolve, that with the capacity and the volume of traffic going through that intersection. That was a key area that we need to focus on to make sure that operates well, to keep the rest of County Road 81 working. So we've got a few different options in this area of how we address that intersection. We're work with the city of Crystal on this. We work with the county on this to identify that and how a station. This one is the graphic that you see here is a grade separated Bass Lake Road from County Road 81. So County Road 81 is coming up on a structure over Bass Lake Road. That helps with the intersection operations, because that through lane of traffic on 81 today that stops at an intersection in this scenario would be able to continue moving through. So we take a lot of the pressure off that intersection. Also, we've identified it gives us an opportunity for a station. We can keep that station at grade, and the benefit there is we can get folks safer to a station in this location with less conflicts of traffic. They're not having to cross those busy, high volume, high speed traffic of that intersection. There's, if you're at the intersection, you're crossing those ramps that are either coming up or down, but it also gives us a opportunity on the south end of the station in this location to, just connect directly across from both sides, and really the only conflict. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. Just so you know, folks might not be able to see it, but we're getting this weird 5-minute warning again.
Oh, okay.
If everybody gets kicked out again, just do the same thing. Re-click on the appointment, in your calendar appointment to rejoin the meeting. I'm sorry that WebEx is being strange. We're this little period of time we're obviously having some technical issues overall with both Teams and WebEx, so we apologize to this group. So it probably in about 5 minutes we're going to get kicked off and just rejoin. So I just wanted everybody to not be surprised when that probably happens. We ignored it last time and it was for real. So I guess it's
Okay.
again.
All right.
Sorry, continue.
So this is Crystal, and I'll kind of move a little bit quicker just to maybe beat that. But again, we want to redefine the station area and how it accesses and how those intersections work. So key component there. Robbinsdale, one of the things in Robbinsdale with a alignment that goes down County Road 81 through downtown Robbinsdale, we'll need to look at how stations are placed, where that station placement is, how it connects within the downtown. Also up at North Memorial, our new opportunity to have a station in that location, how that exists with the North Memorial campus, how we make station access happen. So, not only is it just for the campus, but for the surrounding community, how they get to a station at that location, and how it also connects to the grand rounds to the Minneapolis Parkway in that area. Minneapolis, we are coming off of the comments and suggestions and actually directions that we get from Corridor Management Committee. We're actively evaluating options between Target Field Station and West Broadway Avenue. What the route recommendation that was proposed was, leaving downtown Minneapolis, using Lyndale Avenue up to West Broadway. That is still an option that's in the mix, but we are also evaluating other options that could potentially be used in lieu of a Lyndale option. So we're developing those options right now. We're preparing a matrix so we can evaluate how those work and what those impacts are. And then we'll work on designing a robust community engagement so we can speak with the community and talk about what our options are and how we move forward. So I will turn it back over, and hopefully we don't time out again, unless there's any questions.
Well, the topics that Nick and Kelcie we just went over will definitely be the focus of things that we roll up our sleeves in the next phase and kind of dive into. I do want to reflect that we have noted from this group about thinking more creatively about the environmental process and getting people kind of continually aware of we talked a little bit in previous meetings about how, sometimes we don't really have findings to share, but talking about the process that we're going through to get to that. So we'll definitely be intentional about that with this committee. And I know Nick is looking forward to getting some designs in front of you all and getting very specific feedback on how things end up looking. So again, did I hear a question? in the moment, but at least we are able to rejoin. So that is a plus. I see some of the committee back. I'll give it a minute more. Jason, what happens to the stream when we get kicked off of WebEx? Does it just go blank? What are you gonna do? Well, thanks for coming back, KB and Ryan. I'm getting texts of people that are trying to log back in. And of course, having issues. Well, at least we got through most of the content. I think it's just talking a little bit about kind of what comes next. Kirsten, we're gonna have to get creative for CAC. Hopefully this doesn't persist. Well, maybe that's all that's joining us. I know folks are having some issues. Okay, well, I think we can send out maybe Panu draft a email afterwards as well to everyone for those that might not have been able to log back in. But just so that folks know, this was the kind of the last meeting of this group, as we talked about earlier, and so there's a couple ways that folks have been appointed to this committee. One is through an application to the Met Council or Hennepin County, or it's a joint application. So you're appointed by one of our bodies. For our members that wish to continue that we appointed, we still are going to have you fill out the application, but basically our policymakers are expecting the recommendation that anybody that was appointed by us basically can continue if they're interested. So we'll be sending out information about that, and then we'll also be later this month asking each municipality that has appointments a letter asking them to reconfirm or reappoint their members. There'll be about a month for them to do that process, and then we'll reconvene this body in the fall to dive back into the environmental work and advancing our design and engineering as well. So Panu, if you could basically write some version of that up for the whole committee, and Felicia, I think, is having some difficulty logging back in, so if you wouldn't mind giving her a call with that, just so that everybody's tied out on that front. Again, very, very big apologies that the last meeting of this committee had some WebEx shenanigans. We didn't want that to happen. So just want to give a very heartfelt thanks to everybody that has been with us this past 18 months, giving us feedback and meeting in this somewhat strange virtual environment. We hope to be together in person. And we're committed to both sending you this committee, the links to how to apply, as well as any municipality that would like us to share that information, we will do so as well. So that's what we got. For those that are still with us, any last thoughts? Okay. Again, apologies for the bad technology and for sticking with us. And we hope to see all of you all very, very soon.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Sophia.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.